Welcome to Survivor Stories. What does being a survivor mean? And do you call yourself a survivor? I'm Erica Narducci, the program director here at Cancer Support Community Delaware. And as a survivor myself, and in recognition of June being Cancer Survivor Month, I'm excited to bring this program today, which will contain 4 very different stories. Each one will answer in their own way the question I started with today. What does being a survivor mean? And do you call yourself a survivor? So first, you're going to hear 3 pre-recorded interviews that I had with some Cancer Support Community Delaware staff members. Kaye from our Sussex office, Lynn, who facilitates a caregiver group out of our Newcastle County office, and Reber, our yoga instructor down in Sussex. You're going to hear about the importance of the role of hope, of faith, and of friendships, along with each person's connection here to Cancer Support Community Delaware, before, after, and during their journey. And then after the video, I'm going to introduce you to Jan White. She's a Delawarean, a cancer survivor, and a wonderful advocate, and she will inspire you. So sit back and relax while I cue the video. Sit back and relax while I re-cue the video.
I'm Kaye Webb, and I am the Sussex County Program and Outreach Coordinator for the Cancer Support Community Delaware.
All right. Kaye, can you share a little bit about your cancer story?
Sure. When Erica asked me to do this, I thought, well, that'll be easy because that's part of my life, but it's not going to be as easy as I thought. Back in 1993, which the good news is, I'm almost a 28-year breast cancer survivor. But along the way, things were not always that easy. Life was good. My husband and I had been married for a few years. We built a home. My grown children had children of their own. So I had a granddaughter and a grandson. And my youngest daughter was expecting another child. We were so excited, and my career was about halfway over. And like I say, life was good until one day I was taking a shower and just something didn't feel right. And I felt the side of my breast and I could feel the lump. So I knew that that was not good news. So after a mammogram and a sonogram, I got that dreaded call that every cancer survivor remembers. You have cancer. You need to call a surgeon. So the journey began. I went to the surgeon. The surgeon thought I could have a lumpectomy, so all was good. We were pleased. My mother had had a mastectomy, so I really didn't want that. So I had the lumpectomy. I was starting to heal, and I went back to see him, and he said, "I'm sorry. I don't feel that that was enough surgery. I think I recommend a mastectomy." So I went and had a second opinion. That doctor agreed. So right away I had the mastectomy. That delayed the chemotherapy. So then I started on the program, and one of my first visits to the oncology doctor, I was told, your cancer is very aggressive. I think we need to do something else. As much as you can do, you need to do. So again, back to square one. He suggested a clinical trial. So that took a lot of research. We had no idea what a clinical trial even did. And they connected us with Christiana Care. We were so excited. It was close by home. And then I got another call. Christiana Care was new at the clinical trial that I was going to be on, including the bone marrow transplant. that was a possibility. And I couldn't do it there. My insurance wouldn't pay for it. So we knew we couldn't pay for it without the insurance. So back to square one again. But it wasn't long. I got a phone call and said, Mrs. Webb, if you'd still like to do that clinical trial, there are 7 hospitals on the East Coast. Just pick which one you'd like to try and we'll see if we can get you in. So some were in cities, and I knew that my daughters and my friends would need to take me. So we looked at Duke University in Durham, North Carolina. We went for a visit and we knew right away that was where we were supposed to be. So I did a clinical trial at Duke. I had both surgeries. I had chemo, radiation, tamoxifen. And, you know, after a while, I began to see light at the end of the tunnel. But it sure took a while, and it was not an easy year. So that's where I went with my cancer story. But the survivor story may be a little different.
Well, in May, June, it's June now, we're celebrating survivors, and it's so exciting. You said almost 28 years. So tell us a little bit about the journey of survivorship and what being a survivor means to you.
Well, to start right out, there were no programs like Cancer Support Community Delaware in the area at the time. Finally, back at Tunnel Cancer Center where I went, or where the study was coordinated, they had a breast cancer support group. I did that for a while. That was certainly helpful. Cancer support group was started at my church, which I was part of for many years, but it was a self-led group. It was not facilitated by a professional. So all of this took time, and when you're healing from cancer, it's not just a medical disease. It affects you emotionally, spiritually, in every way, and your family as well. So I wish I had had a place like Cancer Support Community Delaware to go, but I did not. So I went the best way I could and joined these groups, and my family and friends were all so super helpful. But I would say that when I think of survivorship, it makes me think of hope. Each year or each 6 months or whatever my appointments were, if I could clear one, then there was hope for the next one. And I can't say that I do much better when I go for a checkup at 28 years than I did early on, but each one is hope, and that hope, you know, the medical community is doing things so much better, and so are the emotional support programs. So each year we can make it past each checkup is just wonderful.
Great, thanks. I love that word. Hope means a lot, right? So Kaye, share a little bit about what you do. You introduced yourself, but your role at Cancer Support Community Delaware, and how being a survivor, a cancer survivor, kind of influences or affects that for you.
Well, no matter when I get a call from another person going through that experience, of course it brings it all back, but it also makes me understand what they're going through. And even though my medical knowledge and my treatments, everything is totally different now. I can't compare myself to anyone, and all people are different and all different kinds of cancer and so forth. But I still say, when you hear those words, you have cancer, you do have that understanding and that compassion for those people.
My name is Lynn Clayton Jones. My connection with the Cancer Support Community Delaware began in 1999. At that time, Cancer Support Community Delaware was called the Wellness Community Delaware. I had just started my worked with the American Cancer Society to develop a cancer survivor navigation pilot program. One of my major responsibilities was to gather data from cancer survivors regarding their medical, emotional, social, and spiritual needs. It was highly suggested that I meet with the Wellness Community Delaware Program Director, Sean Hebel. He was and still is a tremendous supporter with a wealth of knowledge and resources. Sean paved the way for connecting me with survivors, but he also introduced me to all that the Wellness Community Delaware had to offer patients, caregivers, and loved ones at that time, even children. As my roles with the American Cancer Society advanced, so did my business relationship with the Wellness Community Delaware. In 2006, I became the American Cancer Society's resource navigator located at the Helen F. Graham Cancer Center. In that role, I was able to link patients and caregivers to Wellness Community Delaware resources on a daily basis. In 2009, the Wellness Community Delaware became the Cancer Support Community Delaware. Looking back over the years, it's amazing to know that while working with the American Cancer Society, I have been advocating and spreading the word of Cancer Support Community Delaware's programs and services for over 13 years. Little did I know my advocating would not be in vain. I stumbled upon my own cancer story that began at the same time that I ended my employment with the American Cancer Society. I loved my role as patient resource navigator, but I wanted to do more to assist people through the emotional challenges of the cancer journey. So I made the decision to go back to school to obtain another master's degree, but this time with the purpose of obtaining my license in mental health counseling. I was given the opportunity to switch from being a part-time student to a full-time student. I seized the moment and resigned from the American Cancer Society, however, with bittersweet emotions. A week later, I had my annual mammogram at the breast center. While waiting for my results, I decided to say hello to my former coworkers, of whom I was already missing dearly when it was just a little over a week. Hugs and laughter filled the room, but soon turned into hugs and words of encouragement when I was immediately called back downstairs to the breast center. I was told that I needed to have an ultrasound. I wasn't too worried since this was not unusual. However, after the ultrasound, I was told that I needed to see a surgeon for a biopsy. As one who has worked with thousands of patients, I knew at that moment that I needed to brace myself for the possibility of having to utilize the same resources and services that I shared with others for many years. I had the biopsy, and a few days later, I was informed that I had stage 1 breast cancer, ductal carcinoma in situ. Fortunately, I was a candidate for oncoplasty surgery, which consisted of tumor removal and reconstruction performed consecutively on the same day. A few months later, I received 6 treatments of chemo, 5 weeks of radiation, and lymphedema therapy. So That, of course, led to survivorship. Ringing the bell after my last radiation, surrounded by family, friends, and coworkers, was a moment I will never forget. For me, it was the symbolic announcement of the start of survivorship. But all survivors know that it really begins at the moment we're told that we have cancer. We survived the bitter announcement. Therefore, we're survivors. Ringing the bell is one thing, but getting there is another. I am fortunate to be able to say that my journey to becoming a survivor was one of perseverance, resilience, and gratitude. I was blessed to have much love and support from my biological family, my church family, friends, and coworkers. During this time, I was able to reflect upon the strength and beauty of the many, many cancer patients that allowed me to work with them. What an honor. And so, reflecting on their lives and all that they went through, it helped me to press on through the side effects of chemo, through the tough required daily walks with limbs filled with a lot of lymphedema that I didn't know at the time that's what it was, and the ongoing fatigue. I quickly learned to have gratitude as my diagnosis was caught early. I had all the top docs. I continued with my education. I graduated with a 4.0 GPA and a top Newman University Honor Award. For me, being a survivor is a badge of honor, but the true honor is when I am given the opportunity to share my story to help other patients and caregivers. As fate would have it, I completed my college internship at Cancer Support Community Delaware. After graduation, I completed my clinical supervision at the Cancer Support Community Delaware with former program director Sean Hebel. I am now a licensed professional counselor of mental health, serving as one of Cancer Support Community Delaware's caregiver support group and Living with Loss group facilitators. I think being a cancer survivor provides insight and some understanding from the patient's view. Although I don't make it a habit in sharing that I am a cancer survivor, I am able to frame my questions in such a way that it benefits the group process. It almost always creates a special connection, a higher level of trust, and a greater sense that the group members are heard and understood. I believe that my survivor story is one of faith and destiny. Thank you for listening.
My name is Reber Whitner, and I'm a stage 3 colon cancer survivor. I teach the Absolutely Positively Beginners Yoga and the Stiff Men's Yoga class for the cancer support community in Delaware. and I am based out of the Sussex County office. However, for the last 14 months, I've been based out of my living room because we're Zooming this class, and we have had a series of challenges, but as we also have had a series of really great things happen. And our classes have become stronger because of Zoom. And it's just I guess, our step into the future. I was in 2008. I was diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer right before Thanksgiving, and with a little luck, I was able to talk my surgeon into not doing the surgery till after Thanksgiving, because that's my favorite holiday. And so it was 2008. After Thanksgiving, I had the stage 3 colon cancer surgery. I was very lucky to have a churchmate and friend, Ken Johnson, who was the leader of the group. And that was back when we were called not the cancer support community, but called the wellness community. And he was the leader of that group, and he convinced me that I should attend, that I should come. And it was very shortly, it actually was before I had started my treatments, that I was actually started to attend that support group. And it was a year later when I decided that my life was going to be a little different, that I would ask if I could offer a class for the men, cancer survivors at the cancer support community. I was, prior to my surgery and my treatment, I was a certified yoga teacher, and I was teaching just regular yoga classes down in the Bethany area. But I decided that there was really a need. I felt there was a need because the truth is that men just don't always like doing yoga classes with women, because women by nature are much more flexible and much better at yoga. So I asked if we could do it, and we began a class, and it was the Stiff Men's Yoga class. And we've been in existence for over 10 years. It's been a long, long time, and we have a great core of people. And I think one of your questions was, there was a point when I was experiencing the cancer treatments and the cancer surgery, and I was in this support group, that I realized that there were really 5 really important parts to my life. One of which was the cancer support community. And I contribute 5 of these people, or 5 of these places, to saving my life. The other part was my family, my family, my faith, the doctors and the surgeons, the cancer support community, and there's a 5th one, and my friends. With that, it really, I think, to me, it's a perfect example of it really does take a village to get somewhere sometimes, and my village just looked different than a lot of other people's, but that's how I think I was able to get through that, and to progress and to move forward. I realized that I could continue my life like it was, which was in pursuit of things. I had a business, and I was vacationing and traveling and doing all those things that might look successful to other people. But then I decided there was a little more to that. And I felt like all of a sudden it was my turn to give back. I think my faith has taught me that I believe God sends the right people to the right place at the right time. And then it's up to us to act. And I really thought this was my turn to act. I thought this was something that I could do. I was kind of plunged into this environment. I'm not sure it's a club that I would join if I had the volunteer. Like, would you like to join the cancer support or the cancer survivors club? And I'm not sure I would, but anyway, that's how the idea of the class has happened, and how we got it together. And there have been times when I've been tired, and I thought, maybe I need to take a respite. Maybe I need to take a few months off. Maybe I need to. I mean, 10 years is a long time to be teaching one class. But every time there's been a gentle, soft reminder to me that this is a really important thing you're doing for the people in the class, not necessarily to anyone else, but for the 3 or 4 people that are there that day. It's kind of important. So that's why we continue it, and why my expectation is that we will continue to offer it for a long time to come.
Tell me a little bit about how being a survivor and having had the cancer experience, and especially, being a participant at Cancer Support Community, how does that influence how you are as a yoga teacher and how you relate to your students?
I think it's everything. I'm trying to look for another example. It would be hard to be a cooking instructor if you don't cook. I mean, and I'm not saying that that is the total requirement that everybody who volunteers at the Cancer Support Community should be a cancer survivor, but it allows me to have what I believe is to be um, a layer or a base layer of understanding of what that person might be going through that day, and how it would look different would be, at the beginning and the end of class, there's a time for conversation. And in a normal yoga class, that probably would not occur. I would be teaching a class, it starts at 9, I'd wait to 9:02, the class begins. There'd be greetings and salutations at the end of class, and we'd be done. But here, people are checking on each other. People are saying, what's going on, and people share things with each other, and it isn't always about, one of our participants. They found a tumor on his bladder, no, on his pancreas. So, this whole process, I mean, there were people sending him emails, texting him, checking with him. He went to Fox Chase in Philadelphia. We were, his wife was checking in with us. It really became a support group that just happened to be also doing yoga at the same time. The other thing is that, so that from that level, I think it's different. The other thing is, I think me being a cancer survivor gives me some, how do I say this? For lack of a better word, probably authenticity. I mean, I'm telling you that if you practice your breathing and you do this, and it's going to make you better, it's going to make you stronger, it will make you better. But they can just look and say, okay, well, he did it, so I can do it. Or he's an example. And I try not to say that with a big head, because I don't mean it that way. And I've had lots of people, even outside of the class, come to me and say, you don't know this, but because you were a survivor and you were living by example, it gave me strength on a couple days to continue on, just to get up out of bed and do it. So I don't know. Did that answer your question?
Absolutely. So what do you think a survivor is? Many people say different things. Do you think you're a survivor from the minute you heard the word cancer, or after you're done treatment, or does that come somewhere else down the line?
That is a very, very interesting question, because I ask it of Dr. Perry. There's so much going on in your head when this is happening. Are you a cancer survivor? May I ask you that personal question?
I am.
Okay, so you have a glimpse of this, or have had a glimpse of it. There's that point in your head when you're questioning everything, and you're going, and you're looking for definitions, you're looking for answers, anything that you can grasp your hand on. So one day I'm in I've had the treatments, and I'm in with Dr. Perry, and I'm sitting in there with my wife in the room. I can remember that I was on the right side of the room, and he was sitting next to me, and Stephanie was over here. And I looked to him and I said, so when do you get to when are you a cancer survivor? And he looked at me and he said, what day did I tell you that you had cancer? And that's the answer. The moment that you find out, that the moment you've been diagnosed with cancer and you know it is the day you begin to be a cancer survivor, because you've lived to that point. So that's, yeah, it's been a long time, and I think those are, I like to use positive words. Survivor. Someone recently said to me, and people ask me this all the time. Well, it's a person in the grocery store who knows that I was working with at the time that I had my treatment. He said, "So, he said, how are you doing?" He goes, "Is it in remission?" And I go, "No, I'm a cancer survivor. I don't have cancer. No, we don't. No." And it's very important to me, because I think it's the power of being positive, the power of saying, I'm going to beat this. We're going to beat this. And I try to bring that to my class too. I think it's really important. I think I do. Yeah. That we will get through this together.
Well, I hope you enjoyed hearing our stories. And now it is my great pleasure to introduce Jan White. Jan is the president of Meetings by Design. She's a proud survivor and thriver of stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma that invaded her chest and spine in 2016. After completing treatment, she felt a strong calling to raise her voice in support of cancer patients and their families. To that end, she became a legislative patient advocate with the American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network, or the ACS-CAN, and the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. In 2018, she was asked to join the American Cancer Society's Delaware Leadership Council. Jan was also elevated to state lead ambassador for Delaware's ACS-CAN in 2021. She's got a lot of tongue twisters on her bio here. She has taken her experiences and is raising her voice ever louder with Jan Says Onward, which you can find at www.jansaysonward.com. She is married to her dearest friend, Michael, and is proudly called mom by their son, Ethan. In addition to the business, which she runs with her husband, she enjoys theater, travel, hiking, American Revolution reenacting, and living life with her family and friends. Her mantra then and now is onward. So now, Jan, onward, so we could hear your story.
Thank you, Erica. It's an honor to be here today. We had been living the American dream. I married my college sweetheart, Michael. We have an awesome son, Ethan. Not that I'm biased much. Mike and I run a successful business, Meetings by Design, for more than 25 years. I love being active and studied martial arts. And in April 2015, after 14 years of study, was accorded the honor of achieving a 3rd-degree black belt in Kenpo Karate. But just 1 year later, almost to the day, in April 2016, our lives were forever changed when I was diagnosed with aggressive stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma that invaded my neck, chest, lung, armpit, and spine. I went from running the business with Mike and studying for my 4th-degree black belt to needing a walker. We did 5.5 months of intense chemo. And by intense, I mean every 3 weeks, I did 96 continuous hours of chemotherapy. And during each of those rounds would have multiple injections to my Omaya, which is a permanent head port implanted to get the chemo to my spine. When that was done, we did a high dose, high risk inpatient chemo. And when that was done, almost a month of radiation. I was pronounced in remission. I am here. It wasn't until much, much later that Dr. Shaw, who I'm quite certain I owe my life to, told me just how close we had come. That my file was dropped on his desk at 8:30 in the morning. By 8:45, the partners had met about me. By 9 o'clock, they were on the phone to me with the words, "Be in this office in 1 hour. Pack a bag. You're not going home. You're being admitted directly to Christiana from the office. We have to begin chemo today. We have to try to save your spinal cord and your life. By 10, I was in his office, never having heard of him before. By noon, I was in the hospital. I was cycled through heart study, lung study, blood work, PICC line shoved in my arm, and by late afternoon, I was on chemo. Our heads were spinning. But the speed was crucial because the assessment was I was 7 to 10 days from being completely paralyzed and 3 weeks from dying. That of his career, I was his full-blown emergency. But I'm here. And on our 30th wedding anniversary, I was here to play with Michael in Disney World like two little kids, just like we did on our honeymoon. And the weekend we knew Ethan was proposing to Marissa, an amazing young woman. We knew the weekend, but not when. So my phone lived on my lap, and I was here for the best 3-word text ever. All caps, she said yes. I was here for 1,000 moments of simple joy with family and friends. But please make no mistake, I'm not a hero, I'm not a saint, and I am not impervious to the naked terror that comes with what we now call the adventure. That was never more clear to me than my second night in the hospital as I lay awake at 4 o'clock in the morning, because who could sleep at that point? And I sent a Facebook message to one of my best friends, Robbie. The message? I think the numb is wearing off. Reality is setting in. Oh God, how did I get here? I'm unashamed to say I'm scared. Am I strong enough for this? I don't feel very strong right now, but I have too many people I love. And that's what I wrote as I lay alone in a hospital bed at 4 o'clock in the morning and stared at my PICC line and listened to the air in line alarm go off again. The crushing enormity slammed into me. And I think fear is something that everyone deals with in their own way. And with cancer, there's a lot to deal with. And mental health is something that needs to be normalized in our society, but especially in the cancer space. At checkups, I'm always asked to rate my anxiety, rate my depression, but I was stunned at how reticent I was to say I was struggling. As women, we are taught from a very early age, you just handle it, all of it, no matter what. Be good wives, mothers, sisters, aunts, friends, professionals. So I'll confess, I needed a little bit of prodding to face the fear and the flood of emotions. My Aunt Eileen, who's truly the mom, big sister I never had in all the best ways, called me a few months into the adventure and asked if I was talking to anyone. And I told her I was fine. And she shot right back at me. You are not fine. How could you possibly be fine? You're staring down stage 4 cancer in your spine. Go talk to someone, please. And she was right. I did need to talk to someone, and I still talk to someone as I continue to navigate this challenging reality called cancer and survivorship. And I think the fear and flood of emotions is something my care team deals with too, as they devotedly care for me. They're just all really good at hiding it behind all those professional facades. But I did get to see a crack in that facade once. About a year after I completed treatment, Mike and I were producing a fundraiser for the cancer center where I was treated. Ironically, they were clients from before the adventure. And I saw my oncologist's name on the guest list. I had a checkup a few weeks before the event, and I thanked him for coming. And he asked me, how do you know that? And I explained we were producing the event. Event night came and I instructed my team not to let him leave at the end of the evening until I could come down, say goodbye, and thank him once more. My team dutifully radioed me, and I came down and asked if he liked the event. And he told me the event was lovely. But what he really enjoyed was watching me run around. And I could see a crack in that professional facade in his very broad smile. And I realized what he got to see that day was me, not Cancer Jan, me. Me running a large black tie event, being me. Yes, with some help and some modifications that didn't exist before. I had assistants to be my legs for when my legs gave out. And even now, there are still days where I turn to Mike, depending on how I'm doing that day. Pain management is essential every day, especially on event days. But that day, for the very first time, he saw the real me, and I could see the joy in his eyes. What a wonderful gift for both of us. But I'm learning that those treatments that saved my life come with a really high cost. And in its own way, survivorship is actually the most challenging part of the adventure. For example, monitoring for relapse, for late effects is absolutely critical, but it's equally stressful and frustrating for patients. I was stage 4 before I had any symptoms. And the only symptom I had was pain. And I never, ever want to be back there again. But when they say to me, you need to call us if you're having pain where it all started. I haven't been out of pain in more than 5 years and have come to accept I never will be. And it all centers where it all started. How do I know the difference between the pain of survival or pain that needs attention? Then they say to me sometimes, if you're having night sweats, you need to call us. I'm a 53-year-old woman. Of course I'm having night sweats. Did anybody read my chart? How do I know the difference? Well, if they get worse, sorry, that's not really an answer. Then there's the stress of living with the knowledge that knowing that you could relapse because Damocles' sword now resides over your head. And there's times where you can forget about it for a little while. But from everyone I've talked to, it doesn't go away, ever. To cope, truly cope with all of these emotions, for most, at least for me, requires a professional ear. I believe every cancer patient should have a psychological evaluation, and anyone diagnosed at stage 3 or higher should automatically be referred for mental health. We're not just the physical, we're full packages, and mental health is a critical part of that package. One of the hardest lessons I've had to learn can be summed up in a great Facebook meme I saw months ago. Just because my hair's grown back doesn't mean everything's okay now. And that sums it up perfectly. I mean, my Lord, the marketing of cancer, the pretty scarves, the big smiles. There's no sign of the relentless pain, of the fear of recurrence, of the daily struggle as you work to repair your body or swallow more pills than you'd ever thought you'd have. And I swallowed the marketing. I thought you do your treatments, no matter how rigorous, you take a couple of months off to put yourself back together, and then you continue on with your life as you knew it before, with the adventure solidly and completely in the rear view mirror. But that's not the way it works, at least not for me. And this part of the adventure is more challenging than I ever dreamed it would be. I remember telling myself, you just have to get through August, the regular chemo. Then it was, you just have to get through September, the high dose chemo. Then it was, you just have to get through October, the radiation. But the reality is you never truly get off this merry-go-round. You now have a chronic medical condition that will continue to evolve with new needs and new realities for the rest of your life. When your hair grows back, it's not the end. It's actually the beginning. But as I continue through the adventure, I've learned I cannot shrink away when a doctor says to me incredulously, "You're arguing with me," because that's where self-advocacy comes in. And my answer is, yes, I'm arguing with you because what you're saying does not work for my life. So can we please find a solution that works for both of us? Doctors know medicine, but I live in my skin and I know what works for me and what doesn't. Survivorship, when done well, is a partnership of open communication and strategies between care team members, patient, and family. I've learned I must speak my truth, my needs, my wants, respectfully, but speak them. I would encourage each of you to speak your truth, and I wish you all the best. Thank you, and onward.
Thank you, Jan. So now's the part where I get to ask you a couple questions. I want to start by saying, again, thanks for sharing your inspirational story. And I'm thankful you had an Aunt Eileen. We all need an Aunt Eileen in our life. So what kind of, so you mentioned, you did use a counselor, thanks to Aunt Eileen encouraging you. What other coping strategies were really helpful for you and still are helpful maybe now?
One of the ones we did was to actually try to find the laughter and the ridiculousness in the adventure. I think people maybe who haven't walked this road maybe don't understand, but there are lots of things where you just look at it and go, really? And try to find the humor in that. I can remember maybe a good example was when I did the high dose chemo, it was a liter of methotrexate. And if anyone has never seen methotrexate, it is highlighter yellow. So when they hung a liter of highlighter yellow chemo, it was a little intimidating. But I looked at it and said, okay. And I took a picture of it and I sent it to a friend of mine who's also a client that I do backstage management for. And in the note I said, well, between the highlighter yellow chemo and the radiation, I figure I'm going to glow in the dark. And for a backstage manager, that's value add. So I'm raising my rate. And she emailed me back. She's like, you are crazy. I'm like, yep, I am. And it helps.
Yes. Laughter is always like good medicine, right? Very
Huge.
good. So how'd you keep everything straight? Because that was a lot and you had no time to prepare because it was immediately into the hospital. So how do you keep all the doctors and the visits and everything? And as they continue forward, how do you keep that straight?
My team will find this very funny because they always tease me about my binders, Jan and her binder, but we actually have two binders to navigate this. We have a medical binder and then we have an insurance binder. And the insurance binder is just to track all of that joy, what's approved, what's not, what's in the explanation of benefits is being denied, even though you have the approval, so you can do all of that. But also the medical binder became critical. Every single doctor's appointments, at least until COVID, both Mike and I went, we both scribbled notes so we could compare at the end. We kept track of the scheduling. We had grids for all the medications. We had timetables for all the lab tests. It was a lot to swallow. So we just got it organized.
That's great. And you never know when you have to go back and look something up. So that's fantastic. So in closing today, I'm going to ask you kind of the same question I asked everyone else. We know that words matter. We've heard you several times say adventure, not journey. So what words matter to you? What is a survivor? Do you call yourself a survivor?
I call myself a thriver. I think I've also recently heard victor, which I like a lot too. And you're right, words matter. And that's something I don't know that Mike and I actually even talked about at one point, but we didn't like the terminology. So we adopted our own. It's not a cancer journey, it's an adventure. We don't refer to late effects or side effects. We refer to souvenirs, because you should always have souvenirs from an adventure. So that's sort of how we made it our version of what this is going to be, to try to own this.
Mm. Great, thank you. Thank you, Thriver Jan, for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Truly my honor.